This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. You're listening to a section of the LibriVox NaNoWriMo project, in which a number of LibriVox volunteers write and record a whole novel together in serial form during November 2006. The project is based on the idea started by the National Novel Writing Month. Chapter 6. Written and recorded by Gesine. She stood at a table in the cafe at MIA, Malta International Airport, from which both the escalators transporting travellers to baggage claim and the doors which spewed them out into the arrivals hall could be seen. She was sipping a double espresso and trying to alleviate the boredom with staring down the undesirables among the men who were looking at her, couldn't help but look at her, and flirting with the ones that were passable. This was standard fare for her. It took less than 2 minutes to diminish the undesirables to furtive looks, and another 2 to establish contact with the ones she'd string along for a bit. She wondered idly how such things still tended to work along cultural, even national, divides. Maltese men, far from used to assertive women, and feeling guilty on account of their religion for looking at all, were the first to be subdued. British men were next, too hesitant, too reserved, too much in need of encouragement. Though there was one executive type, obviously British, who was the most active proponent of the passable group. A sprinkling of Italians, one was seriously cute. One American, grossly overweight but squeezed into a khaki kind of camel adventure tour outfit, all technical fibres, millions of pockets, on the very bottom end of her undesirables, but obviously not getting it. It was his fault that the first 2 minutes were needed. She'd finished her espresso. The cute Italian had half turned back to his female companion, girlfriend perhaps. Obviously some action was needed. She took her empty cup and walked towards the counter, and around her conversations stopped. She was very attractive, tall, slim but curvy, very curvy, even features. But, like the Sundance Kid, she needed to move to be truly good, really to hit target. When she moved she was magnetic, and she knew it. And knowing it made her even more so. Her cell phone rang, and she picked it up and tapped it with a perfectly manicured finger. Yes? Are you in place, M21? Of course. They've landed. They should be out soon. What about L344? Standing by. I don't have to emphasize how important this is to us. Top itself has taken notice. She felt a surge of power running through her, causing her briefly to tingle all over, hardening her nipples and bringing a flush to her cheeks. She loved this sensation. Power. Sex was but a poor substitute for the purity of this experience. Sex, for her at least, had more animalistic qualities. She enjoyed it, of course, got elated by it, but it was on a different level. Power was at once more instinctive and more intellectual, feeding the human animal. Top, the head of Global, was unknown to any but the 8 uppers. Since it could be a man or a woman, unlike other organizations, she sniffed mentally, hers was not sexist. Top was always referred to by it. Just then passengers were coming down the escalators. You 3? She said. They are here. She flipped her phone shut. She was ready, and she would not fail. Trevor hauled his suitcase onto the trolley. Hazel's cell phone rang. She smiled apologetically, checked the number displayed. The agency. Why would they call her now? Something must have gone wrong. Hello, she said tersely. Listened for a while. But... yes, I see. Okay then, bye. She turned back to Trevor, who had just retrieved his suit bag. I'm sorry, Trevor. The call I just got, I need to go to a meeting. I hope it won't take long. Do you think you could find your way to the hotel, and I'll join you there when I'm done? Oh, sure, but are you all right? She looked so vulnerable. "Yes, it's—" She laughed, a quick, embarrassed laugh. "Well, it would seem that I've overstepped my mark. You know, by coming here. I told you I was doing this on my own initiative. I thought if I could do a successful tour with you here and present them with a satisfied customer, they'd be impressed. But, well, they want to have a word." "I'm sorry. Anything I can do? I'll call and tell them it was my idea." "No, no, that's all right. Thank you, but I need to do this myself. I'm sure it'll be fine, but I need to talk to them." She smiled bravely, and his heart went out to her. "Okay. Shall I take your suitcase to the hotel?" "Thanks, but someone's going to meet me with a car. I'll just have to nip into the bathroom there. Please go ahead. There's no point for you to wait. I'll see you later. I have your cell phone number. I'll call you as soon as I know more." Trevor nodded. "Good luck." He walked out into the arrivals hall, stepping into the usual discomfort, faced by all the people waiting behind the barrier, all looking. He was searching for the exit sign when his eye was caught on her. Just a glimpse, she had half turned away and was stepping back from the barrier. There was something about her, though, and he let his gaze follow her. Not hard, as she was walking almost parallel to him. He lost sight of her behind a large family, and then she was there, at the end of the barrier. Their eyes met, and she smiled. "You must be Trevor." Before he could reply, she had stepped forward and kissed his cheeks. "It's so nice to meet you. I knew it wouldn't be hard to find you. Oh, I am sorry. My name is Fulvia Rossi. I'm a friend of Tracy's. She told me you were coming, and I offered to pick you up." She smiled at him. A wide mouth, sensuous lips. "That's very nice of you," he said lamely. "Shall we? My car is just outside." She led the way, and he had more opportunity to observe her. Southern type, long dark straight hair, Italian by the sound of her name, but fair-skinned. She was elegant and slinky. The way she walked, the silk dress. The car was one of the small open European sports cars. In understated dark green, and yet brimming with vivacity, it matched her perfectly. He stowed his luggage with difficulty, then sank into the soft leather seat next to her. She slipped on a pair of sunglasses, and they moved off. Her skirt had hitched up in sitting down, showing long tanned legs. When he looked up, he found her watching him with an amused expression. "I don't see how you can drive with your heels," he said, shaking his head, relieved this explanation had come to him. She laughed. "It's a skill one develops. I don't want to fuss with two pairs of shoes all the time." "So, how do you know Tracy?" "We met a couple of years ago when I was a guest lecturer at Cornell. I was only there for a semester, but Tracy and I became good friends, even though we're from different fields. I'm a historian." This explained why Tracy hadn't mentioned her. He was notoriously bored by all the stories of campus politics and staff maneuvering for better positions. "What flavor of historian are you?" She flashed him a smile. "The spicy type. European ruling houses, palace intrigues, love affairs, religious fervor, battles valiantly fought, that sort of thing. I teach at the University of Malta at the moment." "That sounds interesting." "It is, and I should be able to help you." "Sorry?" "Tracy mentioned you were interested in the Knights of St. John, the Knights of Malta." They raced through an ancient-looking stone gate that spanned the 4 lanes of traffic. "Almost there. You're staying at the Castile. It's not as nice as the Phoenicia Hotel over there, but it has more character, and is inside Valletta." Wheels screeched as they left a roundabout and rushed past some high bastions. Then they were out in the open, a sudden glimpse of the sea on the right, far below them. Another small roundabout, a palatial building with cannons in front, and a moment later they were parked. She was already out of the car and opening the boot when he joined her, slightly dazed. He took his bags and looked around. "This is Castile Square. The hotel is just there. She nodded to an old, elegant corner building. The Baroque one opposite is the Auberge de Castille, one of the headquarters of the knights, so to speak. It's now a government ministry, like all remaining auberges. She started walking off. Fulvia, I don't think you can park here. She waved a hand. Oh, nobody worries about that sort of thing here. Besides, I know someone on the traffic commission. She waited for him to catch up. Malta is tiny and quite incestuous. You can't get anywhere here without knowing people. Everything works through connections. It's not always pleasant or terribly just, but it is surprisingly efficient in its own way. They stepped into a small reception area under high stone arches. Fulvia gave the receptionist a dazzling smile, and they started speaking rapidly in Italian. Francesco, she gestured, is giving you the best room in the hotel. 4th floor, corner, dual aspect. Trevor exchanged registration card and passport for key. Thank you very much for bringing me here, he said warmly. It was a pleasure. Listen, I've taken the afternoon off. Do you fancy getting a coffee? I can show you the city, and later we can go for a sail, and I can reveal the mystery of the nights. The word jerked him back to his mission. The mystery. His chinchilla was brushing its soft tail across his arm. No, it was Fulvia, her slim hand resting lightly on his arm, her expression smiling, but it seemed to be a knowing smile. He swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. He was on the trail again. That would be nice. Leave your things here, they will take care of them. She smiled at Francesco. They had walked for 5 minutes when the sight of some blonde girls suddenly reminded him of Hazel. He stopped guiltily. He'd completely forgotten about her and their arrangement. Oh, I'm sorry. I left my cell phone. Do you mind if I rush back? It won't take long. A couple of minutes later, he stepped out of the small hotel lift into the corridor and unlocked his door. You're an idiot, Fulvia hissed. I told you to keep your phone on. Did you at least search the bags thoroughly? You're sure the manuscript is not there? All right, he must have it on him then. Go back to the house and wait there. I don't want you showing your face outside, in case he did see you. I don't care. Do it. Now. She hung up, sipped her espresso, quickly dialed another number. How's Nivea girl? She asked. Nivea girl, she repeated impatiently. Hazel Brown. She looks like the girls in the Nivea ads. The innocent, blue-eyed blonde. Never mind, what is she doing? She listened, chuckled. Excellent work, L344. I'll need another couple of hours until we're on the water. Keep Barbie occupied until I call. She smiled when she saw Trevor coming towards her. Then her smile turned to worry, and she jumped up and rushed to him. Trevor, are you all right? What happened? She reached up and touched the huge white plaster that covered half his forehead and temple. She pulled a chair out and assisted him in sitting down. I'm fine, thank you. A little shaken, that's all. When I got back to the hotel, someone was in my room. I couldn't get a clear look, I was too surprised. Some guy. When he heard me, he pushed me and ran out. I fell and hit my head on the edge of the bed. No, I'm all right, really. It's just a scratch, and Francesco bandaged it up very professionally. But why? Was anything stolen? Did you check? Yes, nothing. The bags seem untouched. They're locked, and the locks are still on the numbers that I put there. I probably disturbed him before he could do anything. Anyway, Francesco will inform the police. I might have to go and give a statement later. But let's not talk about this any more now. The sun is shining, I'm in Valletta, and you were going to tell me all about the nights. She smiled. Yes. But I'm glad to see you've changed, because I'd like to take you out soon. A nice breeze has just come up, it's perfect sailing weather. And in order to understand Malta and the nights, you'll have to see it from the water. She walked down the pontoon. Almost there, she said over her shoulder, ponytail bobbing. He still hadn't gotten over her transformation. Within 5 minutes she had emerged from the Marina shower rooms, wearing an old pair of denim shorts, a long-sleeved microfiber t-shirt, and battered boat shoes. There she is. She seemed to be looking at a large motor yacht, but stepped past it to the last berth. It's a trimaran, she explained. Do you know anything about multi-hulls? They're for racing, aren't they? They have these giant ones. B&Q, was it? Ellen MacArthur's boat? Fastest solo sailor around the world? That's it. They're fast, faster than monohulls. That's the traditional shape, with one hull. But they're also much more stable. They don't heel over like a monohull. Makes it much more pleasant for cruising, too, although I do enjoy the speed. She grinned. He laughed. You could have fooled me. The boat looks just as sleek as your car. I'm sorry, but are you sure we can manage by ourselves? It all looks very complicated. Don't worry, she's set up for single-handing. I go out on my own all the time. 10 minutes later they were motoring out of the harbour, framed on one side by Manuel Island with its fortifications, and on the other by Valletta, rising majestically above its massive bastions. She left him to steer for a moment whilst she went on the foredeck to check something. "We're leaving," she whispered into her cell phone. She busied herself with a rope and went back to the cockpit. "Thank you. Would you like to take the fenders in?" "Well done. We can raise the sails now." She steered into the wind and within a couple of minutes had the tall sails up. She turned the engine off. "Wow, we're sailing," Trevor said. The only sound was the swishing of the water as the slim hulls cut through it. "You make it look very easy." She laughed. "Good. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm famished. Let me put her on autopilot. I brought some lunch and we can talk." They munched happily for a while. "You've read up on the history of the Knights, I assume? Then you know that they virtually disbanded after they lost Malta to Napoleon in 1798. They survived, though, and are still a thriving order today, with about 12,000 members. Headquarters in Rome. They have gone back to their charity roots. Remember they were a Hospitaller Order first. The official name is Sovereign Military Hospitaller Order of St. John. Why sovereign? Ah, now we come to the interesting part. The order has never given up its claim to sovereignty, although several experts in international law dispute it. The order has its own currency, stamps, passports, even a seat in the UN. The only thing it lacks is its own territory. And part of the 1814 Paris Treaty ceded Malta to Britain, rather than back to the order. That's right. What I'm telling you now is unofficial. I wouldn't normally talk about it, but Tracy is a good friend and, well, I like you. She smiled. You've guessed by now that the Knights weren't too happy about the treaty, which they considered a great injustice. There are rumours that there is a secret member of the council, the top government of the order, if you like. The council is up for re-election every 5 years, but it is said that, due to the secretive nature of the position, the 11th officer is elected for life, like the Grand Master himself, and, uniquely, that the position is hereditary. Trevor whistled softly, completely caught up in the story. He took another sandwich and looked back at Valletta, tiny by now, golden in the sun between the blues of the sea and the sky. And the 11th member's job is? To secure the territory, to regain Malta. I showed you St. John's Cathedral earlier. They built all this, and they want it back. What else do you know? Not much. The initials of the extra council member, T.M. He's very old, and apparently of French descent. She looked at him intently. Trevor slumped back in his seat. The chinchilla was making such a noise it was hard to get a clear thought. Old. T.M. Of French descent. Trevor Missou. Of course, the pronunciation of the name had been anglicized, but surely it had been French originally. His grandfather. What's does this council member do?" he heard himself ask. She shrugged. "He travels a lot, trying to influence the right people. That and other things." Travels a lot. T.M. His grandfather had disappeared during his last journey, decades ago. Yes. She opened the cockpit locker. "The Order has its own airline, didn't you know?" No, No, you really knew nothing, did you? We really got to Joffrey before he could tell you anything." He looked up. Her voice had changed, it was harsher, mocking. She closed the locker, and suddenly she was holding a gun. Just then the sail shifted, and her face caught the sun, highlighting her flushed cheeks. "It doesn't really matter if you knew or not, Trevor. I know she's given you the manuscript." She cocked the gun. God, but she was beautiful. "And now you're going to give it to me." End of chapter 6. Recorded on 7th of November 2006.